Hello, this is Signals from the Hill, a podcast about comics from Avery Hill Publishing. I'm Ricky Miller, co-publisher at Avery Hill. In this episode, we have a conversation with Kit Anderson as we celebrate the release of a first collection of her work, Safer Places. Kit lives near Zurich and received an MFA from the Centre for Cartoon Studies in 2022. She's published numerous short comics, including Weeds, which was Ignatz nominee for Outstanding Story in 2023, and Their House, which was featured on the Rumpus and won a Mice Mini Grant in 2021. Her personal work focuses around themes of memory, loneliness, liminal spaces, the natural world, and wizards sometimes too. I discuss with Kit the arts and media that have influenced her and fed into her work, from sci-fi movies and books to Kate Bush. Here it is.
Hi Kit, how are you?
I'm good. How about you, Ricky?
Yeah, good. Finally some nice sunny days in the UK. Where are you at the moment?
I'm based in this small town outside of Zurich. There's a lot of like farms and forests nearby. It's really, really pleasant.
That
So
sounds exceptionally civilized. Very
yeah.
civilized.
Yeah, and the train is still right there too. So I have it
Wow,
all.
perfect. How
Yeah.
long have you lived there for?
About 3 years, I think. So yeah, not too long, but like still really starting to settle in. And yeah, I love it here.
You grew up in Colorado. What kind of town was it that you grew
Yeah,
up
so
in?
I'm from Boulder, or like a small town just north of Boulder, and it does feel kind of similar. I think like I meet a lot of Swiss people who are just like, oh yeah, Colorado, it's the same. So yeah, it's just a beautiful little kind of college town in the valley of these like call them the Flatirons, these really cool mountains that just jut right out of the town, basically. So yeah, it's beautiful. But I do get the same vibes here in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. Yeah.
When when you were growing up there, did you read comics while you were growing up when you were a kid and stuff?
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I was a kid, I definitely did. And then I sort of got this like gross habit of being kind of snobby for a while. And then luckily I took a class that sort of snapped me out of it and was like, oh, look how cool comics actually are. I've had that moment a lot of times in my life where I thought, yeah, my taste was made up, and then something came along and just showed me how cool um, something that I thought was not cool at all was. And like, thank God that happened for comics. So yeah, there was like a long time that I didn't read them. And then I took a class in college that was taught by somebody who's still my friend named Dr. Cuskin. And yeah, he just is like a huge comics advocate. And I think it's like there's sort of always this like argument of like, oh, this can be literature too, but also I just love like really goofy, like silly comics too. So I think it's a very wide range. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it can be literature, but it doesn't have to be. That's the
yeah,
beauty of it. It's like, yeah. Um,
absolutely.
and you went to, well, I say went to, you attended the Centre for Cartoon Studies as well.
I did, yeah.
What, and that was straight after college, I guess, was it?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I had like in my 20s did not really do anything creative. So like I had studied writing in undergrad, and then wasn't really sure what to do with that, slash maybe like had a few discouraging experiences, and yeah, just felt really intimidated by the whole lifestyle, I guess, and instead worked in publishing for like 7 years or something.
Proper book
Um,
publishing. Oh,
yeah, I guess. But then mm, I guess at like some point that started feeling like not super fulfilling, and I started writing again, and started drawing. Like took some community college classes, and yeah, it was just like I think there might really be something here. And then when COVID, but the school was in Vermont and we were actually living in California at the time. So I was like, I'm not really sure how this can happen. But then when the pandemic hit, we had this just like weird kind of pool of time to fill. We just like weren't sure what to do with. So yeah, like luckily got in and went and did that. And it was really formative and important to me. So, and Tilly's there and
Yes.
is an amazing teacher along with many others. So yeah, Tilly was like a big reason for why I wanted to go there.
Were you
Um,
100% remote, or was it? Did you actually
um,
you moved there as well? Or?
yeah, I moved there because you have to be there for the first year.
Okay. Yeah.
There's just like a lot of like hands-on classes and like yeah, a lot of good community building. I think it was important to be there for
Yeah.
the first year, and then the second year I was entirely remote because you're mostly just working on your thesis, which is safer places. So
Sure. Absolutely.
yeah.
Which moves us on to that. So, Safer Places is your first kind of longer book. Can you tell us a bit about it and why you wanted to collect these particular stories?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think that like I had moved here and it was brand new. So I think there was this weird, it was just this really weird time when I was having all these like mediated, really important relationships, like with like teachers and my cohort and my friends, of course, and my family. And yet I was like living this pretty like full and like life that was like full of a lot of nature. And I think just like things always like feel liminal to some degree, but like never to that degree. And I think everybody was sort of experiencing that in the pandemic to some degree. So yeah, it was a weird time. It was a very generative time, and I kind of stopped doing like my freelance work for that period and just like focused completely on making stories and like getting feedback and sharing them with people. And it's just kind of what came out. Those are the things I was thinking about. And I think initially I'd wanted to make a collection that felt like very, every story is like in conversation with the other story, like a lot of like hinged stories and making sure I was like putting little pieces everywhere. But I think at some point that started feeling like a little contrived. And I think it just like kind of developed into this thing that is definitely everything's connected in my mind, but it's sort of maybe a little more organic,
Yeah,
hopefully.
it's kind of thematically cohesive, isn't it? Rather than
Right.
everything needing to link together and stuff. Um, so what we're going to do today is we're going to be looking at how different cultural things have influenced your work, and I asked you for a film, a song, a book, a comic, and a TV show. So not necessarily your favorites, but one where they've kind of worked their way into how you think and what you do, or even just particular stories that they might have had an influence on. And the idea is that we talk about them and look at how they influence your work and maybe what they say about your work as well. How easy did you find it to come up with this list?
I think it was really difficult for me actually. It was, yeah, it felt like the hardest choice I could make because I love so much media for many different reasons, and I think it's also kind of difficult to like zero in on like how influence happens.
Hmm.
I think sometimes it's kind of obvious, but other times, yeah, I don't even know if I can see it for myself, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's yeah.
often this kind of thing is something that someone says to you, isn't it? It's more like, oh, like this reminds me of this other piece or something, and that I think that's kind of what makes this process interesting. Is making the kind of creators think about that themselves
Yeah.
and kind of it's kind of just a different way into the work, isn't it? Do you watch TV or listen to music or anything while you're working, or do you shut
Yeah.
yourself off from everything else?
I definitely don't shut myself off from everything else. I listen to a lot of music when I'm writing and thumbnailing, because I find that's the most like intensive part. I could never watch TV while doing either of those things. And then if I'm pretty dialed in with the pencils and inks, then I will sometimes put on a TV show like X-Files or like something I've seen before, that doesn't need my full attention, something not in a foreign language,
Yeah.
that I can step away from if I need to. And then, yeah, podcasts and audiobooks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I'm drawing. So yeah, a lot of stuff.
So let's start with the film. So yeah, would you like to tell us your film choice?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard even so I said Alien, but I also was like, wait, is it Aliens? But I think I'm gonna go with Alien. So yeah, that is I would say my favorite movie. It's sort of like a comfort watch for me. I will watch it any time, day or night. It doesn't matter what mood I'm in. That movie always fits the bill.
Um,
Yeah. How about you? How do you like it?
yeah, I love it. It's definitely my favorite. It was, yeah, of the Alien films, it was heavily my favorite for a while. But I've appreciated Aliens a bit more as I've got older and have yeah, slightly kind of relaxed my attitude towards just full action stuff. Yeah, but Ridley Scott is I'm a big fan of that kind of period of his work, especially like Blade Runner and
Oh yeah.
stuff like that as well. And obviously Sigourney Weaver is
Oh yeah.
incredible in that. What is it about Alien that you feel has kind of seeped into your work and your process and things?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that I was trying to think of this. It's very tough. One, I love genre. So it is famously a sci-fi slash, action movie, but it plays with the genre like very intelligently. And it has like a lot of like literary themes in there. Like you can definitely spot like the uncanny or the abject, and it's like a very cool like gothic tale that yeah, I just love it so much. And I think like as far as direct like lines, I look at a lot of the shots and like the way that people would be like dwarfed in a landscape
Hmm.
and just feeling so small and insignificant compared to this like universal force, um that yeah, it was just like literally invading their bodies. I don't know, it just is so yeah, that was I think really formative for me. And I think like if I'm being objective about like the way that I like to compose scenes, I think I can see a lot of like similarities. I
Sure.
love the cinematography. It's so good.
It's a beautiful film, and it's I mean it's kind of famously compared to being like a haunted house film as well, isn't it?
Hmm.
Essentially, and how that kind of works. Do you find yourself more drawn to the sci-fi elements or the horror elements in general, do you think?
Oof, I mean both. And like I love like gothic stories. That's like one of my comfort zones to hang out in. And so no, I mean both. I think that like any genre gets kind of a lot of flack, and or I think like people just like don't take it seriously.
Mm,
And yeah, that movie is just so easy to point to as like, are you kidding me?
yeah,
Like look what it can do.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. I mean, you could probably tell from a lot of Avery Hill outputs, but like very intelligent genre stuff is kind of yeah where I am really. I think that's the kind of stuff that crosses over the best, it hits the best. It's yeah, it's just kind of thrilling when you see it done
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and I don't even know exactly why, except that like maybe it like why that I just get that feeling so much like when I do read really intelligent sci-fi or see like a really intelligent like sci-fi movie. Except that like I think that it's kind of, and I think this is similar to comics where like people's expectations are maybe like a little lower, and they're
Hmm.
maybe not expecting for it to like speak very deeply to something in their lives or their psyche. And then yeah, it just like completely blows people out of the water. I think it just like brings people's guard down or something. I don't know.
And with kind of sci-fi in general, like we're obviously we're working on your second book at the
Yeah.
moment, which is a sci-fi book.
Mhm.
So did Alien particularly influence that, do you think, or?
I mean, probably. Yeah. um I'm trying to think.
I feel
So
like
I've been.
location-wise, and yeah, certainly I can kind of think some of the scenes where they're sitting around talking at the beginning and things like that.
Yeah.
There's kind of that kind of, I can imagine them in that. I haven't seen, well, you haven't drawn it yet, so I haven't seen
Yeah.
what those look like visually, but I am kind of imagining white rooms essentially, and
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I've inked like a quarter of it by now,
right,
actually.
cool.
So it's yeah, I should share those with you. But it's like, yeah, it's kind of brutalist. I would say, yeah, very white and sanitized. And I think definitely like the galley in the, oh my gosh, what's the name of the ship? Um Starts with an N anyway. But that galley is like really important in my brain.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. It's visually amazing. Yeah.
cool. Let's move on to your song choice now, which well, it's an album actually, wasn't it, that we went with in
Yes.
the end? Yeah, and again, this is it my favorite? No, it's my second favorite album of all time, I'd say. So
Yeah, wait, I forget what you said your very favorite is.
it's the Blade Runner soundtrack to
Oh,
kind of yeah,
dude, yeah, the original. Is
yeah,
it
yeah.
is it pronounced Vangelis or Vangelis?
Vangelis. So yeah, yeah,
Vangelis. That is like one that I put on to write to
yeah, absolutely.
very often. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I have this like little CD from high school. This
Excellent.
was this is one that
I had
um
that version as well. Yeah,
yeah.
when I had
I
CD.
wish that the liner notes were like much more significant. They're very
Yeah.
minimal. It's okay. But yeah, so I chose Hounds of Love, Kate Bush, the entire album, side A and side B.
hmm
I think it's a masterpiece.
It
So
it is a masterpiece. It's yeah, it's an incredible record.
yeah.
What what in particular about that album stands
Well,
out for
okay,
you?
I think that like so I discovered Kate Bush through my mother, who I think like she was actually talking about like Wuthering Heights, but it was like playing on the car radio. And this again was when I was in high school, and at just like it's a weird moment like between a kid and their parents in high
hmm
school. And I think that like yeah, she just got really wistful and was like, this, was a really important record to me. And, just like clearly had a youth with like really important memories that she was just like completely transported to. And then at the same time, it was like an incredibly good song that I had like never heard before. So that was just like a weird moment for me that yeah, brought me into Kate Bush like full force. And then yeah, luckily it, you know kind of looked into her whole discography, and I love this album. This has become my very favorite, and I think like it's not my mom's favorite, so
Right.
that's good.
Yeah.
I might have my own Kate Bush, my own Kate Bush
Is your
story.
mum's favorite her first album?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
Kicking Aside. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, but I guess yeah, it talks so much about things that I think and care a lot about. I think like standouts would be like cloud busting and the way that it deals with memory. And the second side, I think, is it Hello Earth?
Yes. Hello Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, Hello Earth is like I think one of the touchstones for like the book that I'm working on right now. I just
Excellent.
yeah, it's just such a good album.
It is. Yeah, I'm probably going to make you very jealous to say that I saw her when she performed live and she did the whole of the second side of Hounds of Love, and
Oh my god.
it was yeah, it was, and also a lot of the first side in the
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, that
But it was that whole thing where she was like in the sea or something and
yeah,
on like
yeah,
a
yeah,
foot. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Of course, it wasn't. Yeah, it was just her being Kate. There's
Yeah.
no way she was ever going to stand up and just sit at a piano and perform those. Was a yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Hello Earth because that is definitely my favorite song off that album, I think. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, just before I saw her, I was like, well, obviously she won't play Hello Earth, but that would be my favorite. And then it was like, oh, she's doing the whole the second side of Hounds of Love. Okay, here we go.
That's amazing. Yeah. I always was like I feel like the album could have ended at Hello Earth. But
Yeah,
I love the morning fog too. But I was like, it could have stopped here. It's just
yeah,
it's a perfect song.
it is.
Ugh,
Yeah.
anyway. And I think I was, it's like also cool just how much of her own production she did. Like I think she's like such an, I don't know, like if auteur is like the word that applies here, but it feels just so much like her, very distilled and like I don't know, highly edited. I don't know, I have so much respect for like how she made this album. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, she's a proper artist, isn't she?
Yeah.
With a world view, and it's cohesive, and yeah, I guess, I mean, there's a lot of kind of environmental stuff in your work as well, and obviously in her work. Do you kind of relate to that essentially? Do you find that from where is that all come from, where you grew up and where you live now, or is there like an environmentalism strand to
Yeah.
you as well?
I think probably, I mean, yeah, there's definitely an environmentalism strand. I'm trying to figure out like where it started. And I don't, I think like what I always point to is like when I visited Yosemite for the first time and just like felt so insignificant. Like when I first saw the Half Dome, like from this particular angle, and it just was like, I mean, it was like seeing God or something. It was just an incredibly formative moment that I'm always kind of looking to feel again. I don't know. I love feeling tiny. It's stupid. So and just I don't know. The world is so amazing and beautiful. And yeah, I definitely feel like Kate has a lot of respect for that. So yeah, I think that's it.
So let's go to the book now. So yeah, what was the book that you chose?
Yeah, this was like another one that was so hard for me to choose. So you let me choose like two short stories, because I think of these two as like my parents or something. I don't know, it's weird. But the first one that I would talk about is Summer People by Shirley Jackson. Um, I think that's just the one that I always think about when I think of Shirley, and just the way, and also, I mean, yeah, it's, I don't want to spoil the story for anybody, so I should be careful about that. But
I think it's fine.
is it
I feel
okay?
like they've had a
I
chance
guess
to read it by now.
skip ahead
It's been out a while.
or, pause, read
Yeah.
it. But like the way that it builds the dread, and in this kind of like really interesting like it, it's so what's the word when just something is so like you're going through this like routine, and it's very I don't know, it's like the, I can't think of the word, but it's just like this daily annoyances that like they're dealing with like over and over, but then like there's this like dread that's like building at the same time. It's like
Yeah.
such a mundane story like in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways, but then like it adds up to this just like incredible ambiguous. It's not that ambiguous, but you're just like it just dread. And it's, I don't know, it's incredible. um
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I read this story just to prep for the podcast. I've read a bit of Shirley, well, a few of her books before, and I'd only read The Lottery in terms of her short stories. But
Mhm.
yeah, like she is just the master of kind of just putting you in slightly off situations where you know something's not right, and
Yeah.
but you can't quite figure out what it is until towards the end, when yeah, she just kind of reveals, and yeah, all and you, yeah, it's very conventional initially, and then yeah, just the rug pull towards the end, the creeping dread of it. Yeah, it's yeah, it's a great story. It's a great story.
Yeah. And I think too, like the way that she built, like uses the environment to like build atmosphere, and I mean, she's just so good at like composing her scenes and like the mental state of people. But I think I'm trying to remember if in the story it's like that, but it's just like mostly through dialogue or, like a very limited um point of view.
Yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, it's all really done from the woman, the main female character's point of view, isn't it?
yeah,
Essentially, um, And yeah, I mean, especially the location, the whole kind of opening description of their cottage and where they live generally just did make me think of your locations that you often use, the kind
Yeah,
of remote houses, people where yeah, or just people living in nature,
yeah.
small towns where you have to kind of drive somewhere to get into the town, whereas yeah, that's kind of like the opposite of where I've always lived in like the suburbs and the cities and stuff. But
Yeah, I think big time. I grew up in small towns or suburbs, or and like a farm for a while, and just like that. I love like the rural uncanny.
mhm.
I'm constantly interacting with that kind of media. It just like speaks deeply to me of just like everything is so beautiful and ideal, but there's something underneath all of this is yeah, like probably something I feel too often, but like
Yeah, and
probably slightly dysfunctional.
it is kind of interesting as a genre because as the world gets smaller with the internet and everything, you know, this new thing, the internet that they've invented, that it is it's those locations need to get kind of more and more extreme for them to actually be remote. Whereas
Mm,
back even like 30 years ago or something, it could just be a small town anywhere really where you could have this. Um, yeah, it's yeah, we kind of again going back to your work, your next book, we have to go to a whole other planet to be able to get that same kind of sense of remoteness and just kind of how that psychologically impacts and things like that.
so true. Damn. But yeah, and I think still just like the way that homogeneity will reach even these really like remote locations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, especially yeah, I mean now like we've just kind of coming off the back of the pandemic as well. We kind of and the whole concept of remote working here has just meant that anyone can live anywhere and still do their jobs. So people migrating out of the cities into the more remote kind of places and still being able to do their job does mean that you get basically the same people living everywhere to a certain extent, like communities, which is good and bad in many ways. But yeah, it's changed the whole nature of that kind of enclosed community idea.
Yeah. Would you say, are there like British authors that kind of talk to the same like rural uncanny, like or kind of like rural gothic?
Um,
Um,
yeah, let me think. There probably are some very obvious ones. I guess I'm kind of more think I immediately just think of films really. So
mm,
I guess I'm thinking of like American Werewolf in London, where that kind of starts,
yeah, you just
and
talked about that with Lucy, right?
yeah, that's right. And The Wicker Man, like
Oh
those kind of
yeah,
like remote places. I'm sure there are writers as well, which I'm not immediately thinking of. But
yeah.
yeah,
It's
that
got that
kind of
like creepy folklore
yeah,
thing
absolutely.
to.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah. There's a whole massive strain of that in the British culture of like yeah, creepy, weird villages and inbred peoples and all that kind of stuff. It's yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And do you want to
great.
talk about the Ray Bradbury
Oh,
stories?
yeah, I also wanted to talk about Ray Bradbury, who is also very near and dear to my heart. And I think, yeah, that entire collection, The Illustrated Man, is incredible. It was hard to zero in on a story, but I chose almost Kaleidoscope, but went with The Long Rain. Um, and yeah, well, what did you think of it?
I didn't actually read that one, so
Oh,
I'm
okay,
gonna have
great.
to rely on you for that. I'm not even gonna lie
Okay,
and pretend. I was thinking
no,
about
that's
writing a novel along, but yeah.
I respect that. So yeah, it's just a great story about I think he loves to put astronauts in really rough situations, and this one is a bunch on I think Neptune, and they're so there's a lot. It's just raining 100% of the time for like hundreds of years, and it's this like really intense, persistent rain. That is constantly falling like in their eyes, and they're really miserable, and they crash landed there, so like they weren't prepared at all, and they're trying to reach these things called sun domes, which are exactly what they sound like. They're just these really comfortable, beautiful, idealistic rooms with like a warm golden globe in the middle. So it's kind of these people, in a really tough spot, looking ahead to these sun domes. And of course, there are complications, but yeah, and it's another one that just like has a real, I think a different kind of like creeping dread. And I love his writing. I can, read him absolutely anytime. I'm so happy for how much he put out. Because I can never get enough. And I think he's another one who like maybe I was snobby about at some point in my life, and now just like appreciate so deeply. He's added so much to my brain.
Yeah, he's one of those writers who's considered kind of like pulpy genre, but
Yeah.
yeah, like definitely a very clever man who and a very good writer as well. I was
Yeah.
just kind of thinking back about the fact that we did do a comic kind of that did remind me a lot of some people call this Cold in the River at Night by Alex Potts, which
Oh.
yeah, that is again about like a couple who move out to a remote rural place and then have encounters with the locals and some folklore and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely like a whole strain of genre. I'm sure we've probably even done other comics that I'm not thinking of at the moment that are a bit like that. And speaking of comics,
Yeah.
what was your comic choice?
Again, chose a collection, and it's How to Be Happy by Eleanor Davis, but probably, I don't know, I sometimes I regret my specific choices. I think in this one I said, oh,
No
shoot.
Tears, No
Yeah, No
Sorrow,
Tears, No
and
Sorrow.
Nita Goes Home.
Nita Goes Home. Yeah. And I think
Uh,
when I reread it, I was like, yeah, Nita Goes Home really speaks to me. But I think just like as a collection, I think for Safer Places specifically, like took so much inspiration from the way that she just like Eleanor Davis just explores ideas. I don't think she's very like aware of the mediums and like what they convey, and she's just like very experimental. And I think like some of her stories like maybe look a little funny right up against each other,
mhm.
but it works so well. And like the way that she'll just like throw a one pager in there or like a two pager in there. Yeah, I definitely took a lot of inspiration from how her stuff was collected. And just
Yeah,
felt really free because like she did it, so it's fine.
yeah.
Um,
It'd been a while since I'd looked through that book. Actually, it was kind of I think it was one of the first kind of indie comics I got when I came back to comics, and yeah,
mhm.
it was yeah. It's a lovely. I mean, Fantagraphics done a great job on it, but it is a lovely collection. And
Yeah.
I mean, she is kind of there was like this kind of really amazing generation of cartoonists who were coming through with her at that point, who were all kind of writing great books, and um, a lot of them kind of going through Koyama Press and a
Hmm.
place like that, which were just publishing some incredible people at the time. Like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking of kind of Casey Nowak as well, and Sophia Foster Domino and
Oh
Gillian
yeah.
Tamaki, and it just reminded me how great Eleanor is, and
Yeah.
how I wish adult graphic novels could support these
Yeah.
creators a lot more. And kind of, I mean, that we had the kind of string of masterpieces from them that I
Mm.
think that they would have created if there was more of an industry and more of a readership for those books. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I
I
kind
gotta
of
say, like, I mean, Roaming, like that just came out. I guess it's kind of new adult would be like the genre, but like it's
yeah.
incredible. Like it is so good. And like I love that Jillian is still just like knocking it out of the park. It's
Yeah, but
incredible.
I miss Gillian writing as well, because that was written by
Yeah.
Mariko, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I think
who's
actually
great, but yeah,
well, I hear that it was like, or I think Mariko said like in her stories that it was like a very like team effort,
okay,
that like Jillian did like contribute a lot to the
yeah,
writing, I believe.
okay,
Um, but yeah, no, for sure. I mean, she's an incredible writer too. But yeah, oh, just an amazing artist too. I love her so much.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry to bring. I think I've digressed a bit too much there.
No.
I'm gonna bring us
No.
back. So yeah, and yeah, definitely Nita Goes Home. Again, it's that kind of sci-fi genre, but just doing something totally different with it, and a beautiful story as well.
Yeah, just like such deep and relatable emotions. And I think the way that Eleanor writes in such like just her eyes are so open to how people are.
Yeah,
And I think just like the complexity that she can embody in her characters in short stories is just, yeah, it's amazing. And
absolutely.
that one, yeah.
And in terms of the art as well, do you find art-wise that she's been an influence?
Oh, I'm sure she has. I mean, but like I look at that. I mean, she's such an artist. Like I don't think I will ever like reach that level, but like she messes so much with style, and I
Hmm.
think does kind of adapt it to like whatever it is that she's working on, which like I flatter myself I try to do a bit as well. I don't know if I've like totally zeroed in on like what is you know, how does Kit Anderson draw. I think that changes all the time, honestly, to kind of depending on what I'm working on. But yeah, no, I mean I draw inspiration from like everything that she does, for
Yeah.
sure.
And do you have like other kind of major influences in terms of how you draw from the comics world and
Yeah,
things? So
I mean, I think yeah, Tilly's a big one for sure. Jillian's a big one. Those are probably my big three.
they're a pretty good
But
three. You can't
yeah,
argue with those, can you?
they
Really?
are
I
good.
mean,
Yeah, they're
that,
all precious to me.
yeah,
I
they're
love
Mount
them.
Rushmore, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
okay, that's and the final thing we were going to talk about
Oh
is
yeah,
a TV show.
yeah. Which I think is your favorite as
It's my
well.
favorite TV show. Yeah, well, like this list was good for me. Some of the other lists I've been like, oh my God, I've got to go out and what like I don't know any of this stuff, and it's not necessarily my taste. And but not that it isn't
Yeah.
great, but it's just yeah, not stuff I would have sought out by myself. But this was like, okay, this is my sweet spot. So I love this. So, yeah.
Yay. Oh yeah, and so we're talking about Twin Peaks.
Hmm.
So that yeah, that's my favorite show. I'm even rewatching it like right now.
Okay,
Um
where are you up to?
as we're talking.
Yeah, just
um I think just like the third episode. I just
okay.
restarted. I sort of was like, oh, I should refresh my memory, and then just was immediately sucked in again.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think Agent Dale Cooper was like forever in my brain the best character ever made. But yeah, I don't know. I love it so much. I don't know if I have anything intelligent to say about Twin Peaks. I love like pretty most of what David Lynch has done. And I think it's definitely um, again like the rural uncanny. I think he messes a lot with that. I mean, Twin
Hmm.
Peaks is that like 100%. So yeah, it's just completely wormed its way into my brain, and
And
I love it.
did you like the return?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me this. So my confession is that I watched half an episode and I got really scared that it was not going to work for me.
Right.
And I stopped immediately. And I know I need to get brave and just do it. But what do you think as
I
you know
do
the
love
return?
it. I do love it, and it pays off. Like if you stick with it, like that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, in all honesty, I've never finished season two of Twin Peaks. You know, I get to the point where the main story ends, and then
Mhm.
I get a couple more episodes beyond that, and then I'm like, oh my God, I just can't. It's just nowhere near as good anymore for a
Yeah.
while. And then so I hadn't even seen the final episode either, which I kind of watched before I watched season three. So I think there's probably only one
Yeah.
episode now. I think I haven't seen of season two. I think I've managed to push through it on various rewatches.
Okay.
But yeah, the return, I do love it. I mean, it's amazing. It's like as a piece of art, it's just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. Like
Okay.
yeah, just you have to kind of separate it from what went before, but
Okay.
also you don't entirely have to. It's kind of like it's kind of like a great sequel in that regard, in that there's enough payoff of the old stuff, but also it's something else. It's its own thing.
Okay. I usually like it when people just leave things alone, like when things are perfect and just leave them alone. But yeah, I suppose if David Lynch, if anybody can do it, David Lynch can.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think this is equally perfect, but in a different way. So like this is it's sci-fi horror basically. It's a different genre, I'd say, to the original Twin Peaks, which is obviously like a kind of detective story stroke horror story, whereas
yeah, and very
this,
goofy, like
yeah.
which I love. The humor aspect of it
Oh,
is very
there's
important
a
to
lot of
me.
goofiness in the return as well, but
Okay.
it's more kind of sci-fi horror without like the kind of detective tropes underneath it. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely worth watching, but try not to let it influence how you feel about the original show. Think of it differently.
Okay. Well,
Um,
after this rewatch, I will push through and do it. Maybe yeah, I'll do it, and
yeah.
I'll let you know.
What is it about the original series, and other than like the rural location and that kind of, is it
Yeah,
the humor or is it the
I
character?
think I mean, it was like one of those things that like I think my best friend Kim showed it to me like when we were like early in college, I think, and I just like had no idea that media could be that way. It was so surprising, and I think yeah, just the way that it mixes genres, and yeah, it can be so funny like 1 second and then so terrifying another. And just yeah, like the way he yeah deals with the atmosphere and nature, and yeah I don't know, it just like is so um it's just so important to me. Like I don't think I can describe exactly why, but just like the storytelling aspect was like was very formative.
Yeah,
um
I feel like maybe it's just one of those things that just kind of gets into you, and it's not kind of like, it doesn't have to be like a thing where you go, okay, I've taken that from that and that. It's more, it's a sensibility. It's a perfect thing.
yeah, and it's like it's a whole world. I feel like it really just it can exist there like as a real place,
Yeah,
where
and
those things
again,
are really happening.
and yeah, and like obviously the music really
Mm,
contributes to that as well,
yeah.
which they take a stage further in the return, where they have fairly famous bands performing and stuff, and it's yeah, the whole vibe of it is just amazing.
Yeah. And I think too, just like the way that he'll just be like, oh yeah, there's gonna be this really soft like 80s band that's playing in this roadhouse where like fights are happening. I think that like the way that he can just be like, you know, environments are supposed to be like this, and he's like no. There's like this totally new way to like make this scene to convey like a really specific feeling, is just I don't know, so brave and cool, and yeah, again like something I had never seen before.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool. And then to finish, I'm wondering what, looking at them as a group, you think they all have in common. What is the strand that kind of goes through these?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked about like the uncanny in rural settings a lot. I think they're all kind of gothic. Um, and yeah, talk a lot about like isolation and maybe in terms of like environment. Like yeah, how our brains operate in weird places.
Hmm.
I don't know I'm interested if you have any thoughts on this, but
Yeah,
no
no,
pressure.
yeah, I was definitely going to say definitely like the location, environment, yeah, and what we've been kind of talking about all the way through, really, which is genre, like intelligent genre, which a lot of this stuff is, and there's kind of a lot of, yeah, a little bit of sci-fi going on across all of it as well. So yeah, yeah, I feel like it is a fairly cohesive um body of things to look at together. And yeah, I think a lot of that is all stuff that you can definitely read into what you do as well.
I'm glad you think so. But, yeah, this was fun. Thank
Cool.
you, Ricky.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah, have a good day, and yeah, we'll speak later.
Yeah, you too.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye.